Good evening, I'm John Carter and welcome to Poland Daily. The Law and Justice Party, having recently won the parliamentary elections in Poland, filed a motion to the Supreme Court demanding a recount of votes in the Koszalin and Katowice constituencies. The ruling party has doubts concerning the huge number of invalid votes, with little differences between the votes for the candidates of the opposition for the Senate. The opposition have accused Law and Justice of trying to influence the outcome of the elections and say this indicates the end of democracy.
The Law and Justice Party wants a repeat counting of the votes in constituency number 75, where the left-wing candidate Gabriela Morawska-Stanecka took the senator's mandate, and in constituency number 100, when the mandate was won by Stanisław Gawłowski, running as an independent candidate. In both those cases, there was little separating the two candidates and the Law and Justice opponents. The ruling party, which lost the majority in the Senate by a small margin, claims that the motion was only filed to make sure that the defected anomalies didn't change the final outcome, while the opposition states is the first step towards dictatorship in Poland.
To jest koniec polskiej demokracji.
It's the end of Polish democracy, and it's not a metaphor on my part, but a factual statement. Everyone should be aware that the Law and Justice reaches for the most basic right, the right to choose our representatives.
Ciągają się po tą podstawowe prawo.
Za każdym razem były to sytuacje, w których
In both cases, both candidates got a similar number of votes, and in both cases, the number of invalid votes was greater than the difference between the two candidates. The electoral protest can be filed by midnight tonight, and we're still analyzing other constituencies.
protesty można składać do dzisiaj, do północy.
According to commentators, the case of Marian Banash, president of the Supreme Audit Office, is a serious burden on the image of Law and Justice. Banash, despite objections to his property declarations from the Central Anti-Corruption Bureau, returned to work a few days ago and did not resign. The dismissal of the chairman in light of the applicable law is a complicated matter.
In an interview for the Polish Times, President Andrzej Duda clearly stated that if the allegations against the president of the Supreme Audit Office are confirmed, he should resign. This matter must be explained in great detail, that's for sure. This is too serious an institution to disregard anything. The relevant services must do all they can about it. No mercy. There is no mercy. There is no doubt that if any of the allegations presented in the media turn out to be true, then Marian Banash must leave. Today's Rzeczpospolita reports that, in addition to the tenement house, Marian Banash acquired land from a veteran with a house in the countryside with a surface of around 4.5 acres. Both properties were valued at 150,000 zloty. In return, Banash was to support the veteran for an average of 500 zloty per month. On Wednesday, the Central Anti-Corruption Bureau completed investigations against the president of the Supreme Audit Office. On the same day, Banash returned from unpaid leave to his duties, despite the situation being very unclear. Banash has 7 days to submit any objections to the findings contained in the report. This deadline is October 23rd. Mr. Banash should have resigned long ago. There are many doubts about him in the public space. Matters concerning such people should be crystal clear. Unofficially, Banash was asked to be dismissed by Law and Justice authorities. Initially, he was to agree, but later announced that he would not leave his post as he had not done anything wrong. In the long run, this situation is simply unacceptable. It is a challenge for the entire political class, and we have to find the least expensive solution. Today, President Andrzej Duda referred to the Constitutional Tribunal and act on the transparency of the property of politicians' families. The reason for this is, among others, that information which is contained in a statement which cannot be verified or obtained falls under criminal liability.
Uncertainty and public weariness of Brexit is set to continue. The European Union is likely to agree to yet another extension on the United Kingdom's deadline to leave the Union. This time around, it would be for 3 months, which would mean January the 31st, 2020. The question remains whether 90 days would be enough for Prime Minister Boris Johnson to convince his opponents to his underwhelming version of the withdrawal agreement.
Another Brexit delay is more and more likely. According to The Guardian, the European Commission is considering an extension for the United Kingdom's exit from the European Union for the end of January 2020 if British Prime Minister Boris Johnson fails to win the House of Commons support for the agreement negotiated with Brussels in the coming week.
President Tusk is now consulting leaders of the EU 27 on this, and it is first and foremost for the UK to explain the next steps. We, from our side, will of course follow all the events in London this week very closely.
The final decision will be made on Tuesday at the earliest. According to the Sunday News, if Parliament forces another referendum, some EU member states, with Germany at the forefront, will push the Brexit shift even to June next year. I hope that the British House of Commons will manage to make a decision on this matter and will reach an agreement. Therefore, a short extension is not out of the question. A 3-month extension remains the most probable option. British ministers and party leaders remain undecided in terms of which option would be more profitable for the United Kingdom.
We are going to leave by October the 31st. We have the means and the ability to do so. A letter was sent because Parliament required it to be sent. But as David Davis pointed out earlier, Parliament can insist that a letter is sent, but Parliament can't change the Prime Minister's mind.
I want to leave on the 31st of October, but, I'll warn everybody, if this treaty goes through, nothing will have changed at all. And I think far better to have a short delay and a general election.
Although Brexit seems to be within Boris Johnson's reach, whether or not it will be realised within the October 31st deadline will likely be decided by a handful of votes.
Peace has returned to Catalonia. Last Sunday was the calmest day in the region since protests began. During the 7 days of turmoil, over 100 people have been detained, 28 of whom were temporarily arrested, according to the Spanish Ministry of Internal Affairs. Pedro Sanchez, the Spanish Prime Minister, opposed dialogue with the head of the Catalan government, Quim Torra. The separatist rulers must now denounce the actions of their supporters in order for the dialogue to be conducted.
Many politicians of the Catalan centre-right parties took part in today's March for Unity. They include the populist Ciudadanos and Vox. The gathered people brought Spanish flags and shouted slogans against the separatists. In a counter-demonstration, the Catalan separatists organized their own protests, throwing hundreds of garbage bags in front of the government building in Barcelona. One barricade was set on fire, but the protesters did not attack the police. Although some of the police brutality inflicted on demonstrators over this past week, evidenced in several viral videos, have shocked many viewers. Mass demonstrations in Catalonia started on Monday as a response to the Spanish Supreme Court sentencing 9 Catalan politicians for defying the government. In total, 600 people were injured, half of which were police officers.
Thank you very much for joining me here this evening at Poland Daily. I'm John Carter. Stay tuned after the break for Poland Daily weather. It's followed by the business, then it's the culture, history, and finally the travel.